GB News came out with a video that said central bank digital currencies can be programmed and used against you. Very scary title. I believe that they have some concerns with the idea of central bank digital currencies. I think they may have a point. Hard to argue because we've talked about CBDCs here on this channel before. There's lots of issues that come with them, and all of it has to do with who you're going to trust. Because if they're being programmed by somebody, and are they programming it for something that's going to be in your interest, or is it going to be in theirs? That's the problem. Anyways, GB News got into this with some guests who are experts in this field, and they want to express their concerns. So let's see what they have to say and see if they're right or wrong, or if you agree or disagree, be sure to let us know in the comments. Let's take a look.
I told you it was coming. I said they'd go for central bank digital currencies, a cashless society, and the arguments for it are clear. It'll be quick, easy, cheap to transact. There'll be no problems at all, no loose change lying around. There'll be lots and lots of arguments for it. Well, this week, the Chancellor of the Exchequer and the Bank of England have said
loose change
by
is such a problem.
2030, Britcoin, a central bank digital currency, will be up and running. It will, to begin with, be limited in scope, but with huge ambitions for the years to come. I think this could pose some real threats. It actually gives government pretty much total control over our lives, because they can just press a button and close our bank accounts. No, they wouldn't do that now, would they? Well, think about it. Those Canadian truckers, they were legally and lawfully going about their business driving trucks, but legislation came in demanding that unless they'd been double vaxxed, they couldn't continue in their cabins doing long-distance lorry driving. And they protested. And in the end, their bank accounts were closed down by the Canadian government. Well, with the central bank digital currency, anyone that decides to stand up and fight against the government could be pressed down simply with the push of a button.
Wow. What an intro. Clearly, he believes that this is absolutely total control. And he uses the example of what happened right here in Canada with the truckers last year, and and in terms of them losing their bank accounts, because everybody thinks, oh, they would never do something like that. And lo and behold, that's exactly what happened here in Canada. They're talking about that in Britain, by the way. So, of course, we're coming to you from Canada. And so this happened close to home. And what isn't talked about in the media often is the fact that those people who actually had their bank accounts lost, they're still lost. A lot of people have never gotten their banking back. Can you imagine in today's age in Canada? Canada, what's supposed to be a country that is free, it has a government that has actually chosen specific citizens to not be able to access banking. What does that say about the banking sector? Ooh, that is not a good feeling. Do you think that, I mean, imagine the possibility that you could at any moment just suddenly say, nope, your bank accounts are frozen and that's it. Sayonara, too bad. There's nothing you can do, right? And that's what happened to these people. And as a matter of fact, there's actually other examples that have come to light even since the truckers of individuals in Canada who are influencers who have lost their banking also, right? It wasn't just during the trucker protests. It's still happening. And you don't hear about it because guess what? The mass media isn't gonna advertise it. Oh, our banks are freezing citizens' accounts because they don't like what they're saying. Can you imagine? You don't have to imagine because it's happening. And I know I'm the one that's telling you, but this is from my experience and what I know from not the mass media. There's people in Canada that this is happening to. So yeah, this is not new. And that's without CBDCs. It is really, I mean, right now it's just a phone call for them, but what he's talking about with CBDCs means that it will be at the push of a button. And it may not even be a government that does it. Another part of this that he isn't talking about is the possibility that CBDCs are going to be tied to an AI system, which is going to use social crediting. So it won't even take a push of a button. You won't have to have somebody who's actually going to push a button. You have a computer model which is going to decide for you or decide for the government whether you are a potential threat, right? So if you have any kind of thought crimes, or if you have anything where, you know, they don't like the possibility, they don't like some of the sentiments that are coming across in any of your social media, well, we better take care of that guy's bank account right now. And the AI does it for them in a nanosecond, right? That's the fear that some people have. And he's not even talking about that with CBDCs. He's just talking about what people could do. Imagine what an AI that's programmed by those people can do. They could do it much more efficiently. Isn't that great? It's not. But this is the fear. This is the fear that people have when it comes to this technology. And given what we've seen in recent history, it seems pretty founded because we have governments that are doing this. We have institutions that are doing this. We have people that want to do this. So why would we want to continue on this path? I don't see why. Well, let's be honest. It's because the powerful want to keep their power. They want to be able to keep it on with the way things have been. And the way things are going is that we have a failing currency, a failing fiat system. And it's because its time cycle's up, right? Everything lives and dies, including currencies. And ours is well past due. And now we're seeing the result of that, right? Everything you see now happening is a collapse of the system. And all they're doing right now is trying to kick the can further, just a little further, until they can get into this, right? Because they think once they have total control over everything with the CBDCs, well, that means they can have a whole new era of continuing to control the system. Wow. Yeah, but hey, we got shows like this coming out talking about it. We got people like you watching this that are learning about it. Is that going to possibly affect the plan? I don't know. We'll have to see. But it is going to depend on what you do with your currency. Hey, that rhymed. I'm a poet and don't know it. Basically, what we say on the show is all about putting your money where your mouth is. And hey, if you're going to store your value, store it in Bitcoin where it's safe from this kind of stuff. So yeah, I think the guest that they're bringing on, Leah, she's probably going to get into that because she's got a big Bitcoin right behind her. So looks good. All right, let's keep going.
But also the author of Undressing Bitcoin, not Britcoin.
Oh my.
Bitcoin. Leah, thank you and welcome for joining me this evening. Just explain central bank digital currencies. This isn't just the Bank of England considering this, is it?
Exactly. Currently, more than 90% of central banks globally are all working on bringing out a central bank digital currency.
90%.
And I think it's really important to elaborate on what exactly that is. A central bank digital currency is basically what we have now. So it's fiat currency, but it's going to be entirely digital, which means absolutely in the control of the government and the central bank. So as you mentioned, governments, since they own it, they're able to program it in a way that we've never seen before. So as you said, if for whatever reason you don't do as you're told and you don't take 3 vaccines, 4 vaccines, or whatever it is, the money can just be programmed to be used against you. The perfect example is right now we're living during this supposed climate crisis where they want to implement a carbon allowance. So how do you do that? Well, it's very simple. You just program the money in a way that you cannot do with the current cash that we have. You program the money. So if, for example, you have a barbecue and you want to buy some steaks, some burgers, some sausages, whatever it is,
Sounds good.
you could actually reach your carbon allowance. And when you go to fill up your car, it could get declined because you reached your carbon allowance. So it's a really efficient
Get my barbecue,
way
but I
for
don't get to fill up my car.
implement their political and woke agendas through the money.
Well, all of this, of course, Leah, all of this will be denied at every stage by government. But when you look at the incredible overreach of government over the course of the last few years, nothing is impossible. Now, I know that you are a great advocate for Bitcoin, perhaps for other cryptocurrencies too. And it's, this program is not here to give investment advice, but I'm thinking to myself, if we move towards full central bank digital currencies, and I don't want government to control potentially every aspect of my life, presumably this could be the biggest thing that's ever happened to Bitcoin and other crypto coins.
Absolutely. During the time of the truckers, we used to say that Justin Trudeau was the best advocate for Bitcoin.
Oh.
With Bitcoin, when you hold it correctly in a non-custodial wallet, which means outside of any CEO or centralized control, nobody can freeze it. Nobody can touch your funds as long as it's in a non-custodial wallet. And that's the most important thing.
Non-custodial
and,
wallet.
You don't have to buy Bitcoin for an investment purposes. It's about being a sovereign individual, because
About being a
money
sovereign
is the
individual.
energy which fuels your life. So if you don't have control of your money, you don't have control over anything, and you, in my opinion, really just become a slave. Because if the government can make your money expire, if the government can freeze it in the name of terrorism or national security, then what freedom do you have in society as an individual? You have none. And that's why, of course, I'm a huge advocate for Bitcoin, because nobody can touch it. There's no CEO, there's no centralized authority, fully decentralized, in the control of just you.
But number
All
one,
true.
we've got to be honest, it is extremely volatile in terms of price. And number two, we have seen a very large number of bankruptcies in what is a pretty unregulated market. So there are risks here, aren't there?
So I'll start with the price. Firstly, it is volatile. Everything is volatile. But if you zoom out and look at Bitcoin over the last decade, you can see that it is moving on an upward trajectory. Again, this isn't investment advice, but long term, if you do zoom out, it does seem to be some form of store of value. Secondly, with regards to bankruptcies, those are centralized exchanges. And I would never advocate leaving your money on a centralized exchange. That's really the same as leaving it in a bank with no insurance and no regulation. So don't do that.
She knows what she's talking about.
Okay. Well, Leah, thank you once again for joining me on this program. Thank you very much indeed. And folks, as I say, I'm not giving investment advice, but I can see it. If central bank digital currencies come, fully within the next decade, a lot of people will go for other options.
There you go. Wow. So as you can see, Leah has some awesome arguments in terms of why Bitcoin, and funnily enough, how what happened with the truckers was the best promotion for Bitcoin. I thought that was kind of funny. But clearly, the host seems to think that the volatility and some bankruptcies apparently are an issue. Leah handled that fantastic in terms of saying, "Hey, those are central exchanges, and you shouldn't put your crypto there anyway." Which is right. And the volatility. Yeah, that seems like a kind of a tired argument, because have you looked at the volatility of fiat currencies these days? It is just as bad. It's just hidden, right? They are printing so much and devaluing, debasing the value of the fiat, and you don't even see it, right? But you don't see it because you're going to McDonald's and you're paying double what you paid last year. You go to the grocery store and you're paying triple what you did last year. And stuff is just going sky high. And it isn't inflation, it's debasement. It's the value of the money declining. And that's because they've done that to it. Doubling and tripling of price. Come on. That is not volatile. Here are things that you expect to be able to pay and just living things like gas and food and energy and things like this that are just part of life. And yet the Bitcoin is the one that's volatile. Sorry, I think that the world fiat system has caught up with that whole idea. And now fiat, I think, in my estimate anyway, is just as bad, if not worse, than what Bitcoin does. Yes, it goes up and down in the short term, but that's nothing compared to the devastation that's been caused to these systems. And like I said, the reason is because it's on its last leg. It is almost over. And they just need to kick the can a little further to keep it going in order to get into this, right? Wow. Just wow. But clearly, the host seems pretty excited about the possibility of being able to have an alternative, which is important, right? Because if there was no alternative, if there wasn't another option, what are we going to do? Now, I'm going to tell you a little bit about what some people think in this regard. Some people out there have the opinion that Bitcoin and crypto in general was some kind of a CIA operation, right? The conspiracy is that the whole idea of crypto and Bitcoin was introduced so that when CBDCs come, then we're going to be more accepting and we're going to just roll over to it, right? But this is a kind of a conspiracy that comes from, to preface that, it usually comes from people who are into gold. So it tends to come from people that really, really like gold. So they have this conspiracy that, crypto is introduced as some kind of an operation to get people accepting of this, of the whole idea. I have a hard time with that simply because the technology itself is actually out of the control of these very people. And it actually offers an alternative that people wouldn't have otherwise, right? If there wasn't Bitcoin, what are you going to do? Right? What would you do? Right? And then of course the gold bug would say, oh, gold, right? Yeah, but as hard as things are going to get, as things change, okay, the one thing that is quite clear is that things have progressed. Things are, we're not going back to horses and buggies now that we have cars, right? We're not going back to using feathers with ink now that we have pens, right? Technology deflates. Technology is a deflationary vehicle that has enhanced the lives of everybody around the world, and that's going to continue. Our digital lives are the next frontier, and our ability to be able to live in that is paramount. So our ability to be able to transact digitally is just as important. And so far with Web 2.0, they haven't been able to effectively have value transfer from point A to point B, and that's what Bitcoin does. Okay, it sounds small because the truth is that Web 2.0 is all just copying everything, right? There's no actual value transfer. Bitcoin makes it so that through its technology and through blockchain and everything else, you got point A to point B value transfer, and there's no double spend issue. You have the ledger, right? And it's decentralized. It's out of anyone's control. Like Leah said, nobody can stop you, right? And that's important in terms of being able to have a digital transacting life, okay? So as bad as things are going to get, as good or bad as things are going to get, that is an alternative which people can start to utilize outside of the system, where you can have money one day, right? You have your nice CBDC that says, oh, look, the government gave me $500. Oh, wait, I can't use that for food? Oh, wait, I need to be able to, I'm supposed to go to this center so that I can keep my $500? Okay, right? That's the future that people see here. And I know that sounds very verbose, but is it any worse than what we've seen in the last few years? Ask yourself. So the fact is that this fiat system is on its last legs, and many people are understanding, many of us are understanding that. You don't think that the people who run the banking system don't understand that either? You think that they're oblivious to what's going on? It's only that it's only in the last few years, I think, that people on the outside are starting to see that. It's not even the last few years. Actually, it's 2008 was the beginning, right? That was the beginning of the end. And it's just continued on since then. Maybe the beginning and end was 1971, right? When we went off the gold, when the US went off the gold standard. That might have been the beginning of the end, honestly. But actually, that was the beginning of, it's not the beginning of the end. It was like the beginning of the experiment, right? And now we're at the end cycle. We're at that, it's almost, 70 plus years. Wait a minute. Now I got to do some math. 50? 1971 is like 50. 50 years? Yeah. So that was a 50-year experiment of just making money out of nothing. And, we're at the end of that life cycle. Okay. So what happens next? There's all kinds of shows and experts that will tell you different things about what they think will happen next. Be concerned with what you're going to do next. Okay. I think it's important that we support the alternatives, that we find ways in our lives to be able to have that sovereign ownership, like Leah talked about, to be able to find ways that we can ensure that at the end of all this, we're in a place that we can, through cryptography, defend ourselves, have a place that where value can be stored and not lose it. If you look at the past, what happened, for example, in World War II, people who stayed in those places, like while the war was coming, you don't hear, unless you really look at, if you study it and what happens. When the war was coming, some people just picked up whatever they could with their hands and left. Some people who were wealthy and their wealth was in their things, property, paintings, and all this other kind of stuff, they couldn't do that. They were stuck. So they ended up staying there to try to defend whatever they could and got slaughtered. And then, of course, the regime came in and just took everything. And this is how governments gain wealth and power. So That was World War II. Today, in this digital age, the ability to be able to take your value, to be able to control your money is what they're talking about, so that you effectively won't be able to accumulate any kind of wealth without the government's permission. You are effectively a slave. Like, it is game over. You won't be able to buy anything. You won't be able to go anywhere. You won't be able to, like, it will be completely at their behest. Now, of course, you're going to say, oh, but the government would never do that. Sure, they will. It will be an open air prison kind of a scenario where you can go here, but not too far. You can eat these things, but not too much. And we'll decide when and where you can have your meetings, or be able to see certain things on the social media, which we will decide. Here in Canada, we got the C11 thing coming down. You heard about it? Even YouTube is talking out against it. So yeah, so you won't even be able to know what's going on because, hey, Bill C11 allows the government to decide what you're going to see and hear too on the internet, right? It effectively is going to turn Canada into a almost like the equivalent of North Korea. And this is actually just passed Senate. Crazy. With amendments. Anyways, I digress. CBDCs are a really big topic, and it's great that lots of people are catching on to it. GB News catching on to this is fantastic. Nigel, I think he understands the dangers here. And Leia, clearly on the Bitcoin side, understands the alternatives. So to me, it's pretty clear what has to happen next. I believe that you should make your own choices, and you should help to ensure that you are protecting your sovereign wealth. So maybe you disagree. Maybe we should just give it all to the government. Maybe they could do better. I don't know. Maybe we should just lay down and let it all happen. Or maybe your attitude is, hey, what are you going to do to fight it? This is the government. How are you going to fight them? There's nothing I can do. Put my hands up. It's over. That could be your attitude too. Whatever it is, let us know in the comments. Leave a message down in the comment area to let us know what you think about this. Be sure to like it at least, because you stuck around this long. Obviously, you liked it. So just leave a like and share with your friends. Talk about this subject, because obviously it's something that's important. It's going to affect you, whether it's going to be today, whether it's going to be in a couple of years, whether it's going to be your kids. It is going to affect you. So you better start talking about it so that you can get clear on what you're going to do next. Till the next one, have a great day.